Hey guys, welcome back to the pod. Today I have a special guest with me. I have a director and a writer, Brandon Bernath. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me.
Um, Today we're going to be talking about your short film Pool Party.
Mhm.
And as you just mentioned, it's going to be at the film festival tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah, Beverly Hills Film Fest 2024. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
And is that your kind of first film festival run, or are you kind of like a pro to
You
this
know,
now?
I wrote and produced and acted in a film that came out a couple of years ago called Howdy. I didn't direct it, but it was that would I would say that was the beginning. That
Okay.
was the beginning of it all. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And so before we kind of fully jump into your short film, I did kind of want to talk to you a little bit about your background and just like how you got into filmmaking.
Cool.
I always find it interesting to hear people's stories because I know everybody's different.
100%.
And then of course, like if you have any key moments in your life that you could think of that kind of led you to this, I would love for you to share that as well.
Definitely, yeah. You know, I was an actor growing up. Like that was like everything I knew when I was a kid. Going up to like 18, and then I went to college. You know, I wanted a different. You know, I'd go out to auditions all the time. My mom would drive me to auditions, and that's kind of like how everything began. I was a pretty successful actor as far as like commercials, a little bit of TV, but mostly commercials, and I wanted a different life. I wanted to pursue my academic breadth. And I went to college, went to law school. Yeah, and I was writing a script. Like, I think through my college experience, I learned how to write, and I was more interested in like creating stories instead of just perhaps as an actor, I might have been at times a little bored, honestly. I just felt like I had a bigger capacity. I always wanted to kind of be more controlling, in
Mhm.
the creative process, and as an actor, sometimes it's just it can be boring when the role doesn't really like hit home. So I think college I learned how to write, and then I went to law school, and I was writing, and I just realized I didn't want to do it. So after law school, I did like a year and a half, and then I got out of there. And then getting back into the business, I had taken a 7-year hiatus. Coming back to LA, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pursue acting again. And but I had all this knowledge of writing, and basically I couldn't get an agent. When I was a kid, I was very very lucky and fortunate to have obtained managers and agents, commercial and theatrical. And getting back into it like 7 years later. Oh, and one of the also the main reasons why I quit acting in college was there self tapes. Didn't exist yet. So that was a huge thing, and I went to Pitzer College, which is one of the Claremont colleges about an hour outside of the city. And they still wanted me to come in to the city and do these auditions. I was like, I can't do college and this. So if self tapes existed, then I might have still pursued acting, because acting was really like my identity. Like I remember introducing myself the first day of college to people and be like, I'm an actor. Anyway, so coming back into acting years later, I couldn't get an agent, couldn't get a manager, couldn't get any auditions. I joined this acting class, which Beverly Hills Playhouse, which was a fantastic environment. You could literally write anything you wanted and bring it in. You could act. You could like pick a scene from anything, and so I found myself like writing stuff, and really the intention was just to like write something to put myself in, to eventually get an agent and manager, and that's what led me to my first little short film, Howdy, which I produced, wrote, and acted in. And then that led me to my first directing gig, which was this musician that I had met, and he had seen that film, and he was like, I think you should direct. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And that first gig, 2020, for Pokey Lafarge, Rolling Stone magazine, premiered the video, and it got millions of views. And so that I was off to the races after that. So, and that was 2020. So I've only been directing for 4 years, really. And
Wow.
yeah, and a lot of opportunities came my way, with directing. And I hate to quote Matthew McConaughey, he's great, but green lights, right? Like you go where the green lights are. In his book, Green Lights. But yeah, green lights, man. you go where the opportunity goes. You go where the flow is going. So the flow is going with directing, and here we are. So
Yeah, it's so interesting that you said you went to law school because I feel like that is
mhm.
something that a lot of filmmakers or people within the entertainment industry, they do things that are completely different than acting or directing and writing, and
Right.
then they move into it. And it's like, and I say that to make the point that there is no one path to get into this industry because it's, I mean, you do so many things, right? And so hopefully if anybody watches this, then you kind of know that you don't have to do things one way to get into this industry or to be successful.
No, I just think you need to have, well, you need to have the drive, and that's it. I think, yes, you're gonna, going to film school, or let's say you're an artist and you go to art school. The main benefit that I have through my years have noticed and realized that if you do go to these things, these schools for your profession, the biggest thing, other than learning, more about your craft, is really the people and the connections that you make when you go to these places. That, like, if you're going to just do it without going to school or whatever, you're really going to have to, like, grassroots campaign, start meeting people and go out, and you never know where you're going to meet people and those opportunities. So it's a different, when you go to school again for it, you're going to have that resource of people immediately. But if you
Yeah,
don't go to school, you're going to have to really seek those people out. So I,
right.
yeah, and really, it's just your drive. If you want to make movies, start making movies. I mean, that's the best advice. Really.
I hear that a lot too. People are just like, "Just start doing it."
You really just got to. You really have to. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and then I've heard that your short film is a joint venture between a fashion brand and a nonprofit organization. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. So Jeff Root is the owner of L'Agence, the fashion brand, which is a New York, LA, Paris-based brand. Jeff had reached out to me. He was like, I'm doing a collaboration with Choose Love, the charity, and we'd love to make like a little short film. Can you write some treatment? I still hadn't got the job, and I had to, write treatment. I got mine done really quick, sent it in by, like, it was like Monday, by Friday I'd sent it in. By that Sunday I got the gig. So that was a huge opportunity. And honestly, he kind of gave me carte blanche. He was like, pretty much do whatever you want. I felt the pressure of L'Agence as a brand, Choose Love as the charity. So I really wanted to write something that was still me, but was a collaboration. Really, I
Right.
wanted to kind of make something that I thought was on brand with both Choose Love and L'Agence. And yeah, throughout the film, there's, love is a huge theme. So I think I nailed it. And then obviously, a lot of influences. Slim Aarons, the photographer, 70s cinema, B movies, modern cinema. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to ask you about too. If you have any directors or even specific movies that you draw inspiration
Oh
from.
yeah, I mean, like, Tim Burton's my favorite director of all time for sure. Just being a kid watching those early Tim Burton films, just like, it really is like those early influences as a kid will always stick with you. So like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, those two have always stuck with me. Not to say that my film is anywhere anything like that, but there's definitely some. I could see some connection with like Little Scissorhands. The suburban kind of thing that's just like over the top,
Yeah.
um, characters that are bigger than life. I love that kind of style. I'd love the opportunity to make a feature that goes even more into that. And not to say that's my only influence. I have so many influences, obviously, in cinema. Also, another photographer that was a huge influence on this film was Nadia Lee Cohen, who's a contemporary of mine. She's English. She's a photographer. She shot a lot of music videos. It was almost just like, well, what if Nadia kind of did a movie? Or she was kind of consulting, or she was like a producer. Well, what kind of movie would you? And or Slim Aarons, or. So anyway, it's kind of some of the influences.
Yeah. And and your short film actually reminds me of theater. And so the fact that you said you did acting, that kind of makes sense to me because it is kind of over the top and absurdity. And then
Oh,
I think,
honestly, I wanted even more absurdity, but
really?
oh yeah, I had like in the beginning, I had just like, and again, remember this is a fashion film. It's so the thing is, it's not really a short film. I would say it's like a fashion film, but it's also It's like a commercial. It's like a
Yeah, I got that vibe
you
too.
know. So I wanted all of that really. But oh yeah, I had way more absurd stuff. Like I had, bodybuilders just standing in the room, in the first like scene with Danny Dynamite and Beverly. Like I had just like random characters just standing there, just giving the vibe, But I felt like the absurdity stuff I wanted to. Throughout the process, I was like, well, this is the thing, Tiffany. We shot this in 3 days. Three
Oh,
days.
wow.
So I had so many more scenes too that I wanted to shoot that we just didn't get to, I have this thing where like I'm really into building a world. Every project that I do, if you read any of my scripts, they're all these like, huge worlds and a lot of characters. I don't know. It's just that's what I like. I like that.
Mhm. And so do you ever see yourself continuing the story or making it a like a full
I,
length
I mean,
film?
after we've made the movie and I've gotten into festivals and stuff, and you try and do due diligence as a filmmaker, especially someone who's starting out like me who hasn't done a feature film yet. I want I would love to make that world of Pool Party into a feature, and I have definitely like written some pages on what that could be. I have some features screenplays that I have finished and ready to go. So right now we're in the process of kind of like perhaps developing that, casting that. I'm not really that's on pause right now, but for sure I would love to continue. Maybe not have the same premise and storyline, but
Right.
that kind of like absurd. I like this like you know almost like a different dimension of LA, like a different reality of LA or how I look at it. I would
Mhm.
love to do something like that. It's gonna happen. I know. I'm sure.
Yeah, just put it out in the universe.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that you had, Beverly and Danny have this on and off again relationship, and so I was wondering where that came from, if that's something that you kinda draw from your personal life, or is that more so having to do with just trying to incorporate the organization?
Well, for sure, the organization, for sure. But I'm a painter as well as a filmmaker and a musician as well. This is one of my pieces actually behind me.
Oh,
But
that's nice.
yeah, thank you. But so why I bring that up is because I had a client or someone who had purchased a painting, and she couldn't fit the painting in her car, in her Porsche. So I suggested that I'd drive the painting and drop it off at her house. So that day I drove the painting over to a really nice part of LA, and it was one of the supposedly one of the early mansions in LA. And she had told me like, oh, don't don't say that I bought this painting today. She was trying to hide the fact from her boyfriend that she had just bought this painting because perhaps she wasn't supposed to be spending her money.
Yeah.
Anyway, I walk in, I open the door, and it's a very young. Oh, and by the way, this woman who had bought the painting was a little, older woman,
Mhm.
very cool, like you know, full of life, free spirit woman. But I'd seen her extremely young boyfriend, and who greeted me at the door. So that kind of was playing in my head, like what their relationship could be, or what would be funny, and
Right.
and that's kind of where I came up with it, And also for sure, yeah, Ed Wood, there's another Tim Burton reference. There's that whole fight scene between them was, by the way, way more elaborate. We had like 6 hours to shoot that. We had like all kinds of breakaway glass that we were going to use that we didn't get to. We didn't have time. But it was going to be like a full on, fight with glass breaking everywhere, and which was directly, borrowing and ripping off that scene between Johnny Depp and I forget, Sarah Jessica Parker in Ed Wood. I wanted to reinterpret it in my way. But
Oh man, that would have been fun to see.
it would have been cool, but next time.
Yeah. And then what was the casting process like? Because you said this was such a quick
So cool.
process.
Love it.
Was it easy to find your actors?
I mean, honestly, listen, I over prepare with everything I do, so that the process is relatively easier. You have to, as a director and a filmmaker and as a producer also, you have to anticipate where things can go wrong. And if you anticipate it, then less things go wrong, right? So the casting process actually was really easy. I mean, the whole film, honestly, went pretty smooth, even for the fact that we shot in 3 days and we had over 100 cast and crew, yeah, the casting was really fun. I have like 25 principal actors, all with lines. I had to cast all of them with the help of Elizabeth Mihelich, my producing partner and production manager. We did it. We did it together. We sent out, we had auditions, and a lot of people sent in some self-tapes, and it was really fun to go through all the auditions and match people together. There was a couple auditions where, actors delivered lines that I never thought, I didn't see it in that way. And that's always cool. There were some auditions, where it wasn't behind a, blue screen or, a backdrop. It was straight up like the guy who got one of the roles, like, did it on the street, in a car.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. Like, I mean, that doesn't necessarily, make sure that you're going to get the role, but I mean, but it helps, I think, if you put it in the setting, So.
Right, right. And then I had heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were originally supposed to play Danny. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
true?
true. Well, I just thought, like, because I'm an actor, right, that I was going to play the guy. I'd wrote it for myself. And there was a very small part in the film, which was at the end, which was this Japanese rockabilly band that I had, like, come up with, I was just like, yeah, there's this band and I'm going to just play with this Japanese rockabilly band at the end of the movie. And so one of the first casting that I was doing was to try to put this Japanese rockabilly band together. And so I was researching all around LA to find it. There was no Japanese rockabilly. I couldn't find a Japanese rockabilly band, which blew my mind. I thought it was going to be way easier. No, it was not easy at all. I couldn't find it. I was just like, I was literally against the wall. It was one of my first casting things that I wanted to find. Couldn't do it. So then I just went on Instagram. And one of the first things that popped up was Daigo Yamashita, who Johnny Pandora in Japan. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this guy is not just perfect to be in the rockabilly band, but this guy is actually Danny Dynamite. And it was, one of those aha moments where it was like, oh, forget me. Like, this is way more interesting as a casting choice. It just brings this whole other thing to it. And pretty soon after that, well, first I had to reach out to him and he had to agree, which he did pretty quickly, which was remarkable because he was huge. He has a huge following on Instagram. I didn't think that he would even respond. You know how it is with Instagram. You direct message people and never answer.
I know. I was gonna say nobody ever reads.
right. Or nobody ever, or they do, but they don't answer you back or whatever. But he answered immediately. And he was like, "Yes, I'm down." I was like, "How the fuck am I going to get this guy out from Japan?" Or what? I mean, luckily we had a pretty good budget for the film. So, and he had his own rockabilly band as well in Japan. But I was like, we can't afford to fly out his whole band. So with the help of Johnny, he knew people in LA, but he only knew like one. And then once we got that guy, then that guy knew another dude. And, anyway, so we put the band together. I wrote a song for them to play at the end of the film, which is based on an Elvis song. And we were off to the races, man. It was pretty cool. Yeah. And then immediately, I was just like, oh, he's just going to speak in Japanese the whole time and we'll just do subtitles.
Yeah.
No problem. Like I knew like immediately, like that was going to be the move,
That's amazing. That sounds like such a fun shoot.
It was incredible, literally incredible. I mean, every single person on that shoot was like so grateful to be there, so excited. You know, I got so many compliments and from everybody. Just yeah, it was just a really it was a blessing for sure.
Yeah, and then so when it screens tomorrow, how do you feel about that? Do you get nervous when you have large audiences watching your films, or
Oh,
is it something you look forward to?
well, no, I don't get it's more just like, it's more just like I want the theater to be full. I've gone to some screenings and like, just because of how festivals do it, sometimes they'll like split up a block into two theaters, which is ridiculous because then it splits the amount of people that are going to be in one room into two different rooms.
Right.
And it's like, sometimes it's a little empty, but well, first of all, there's going to be a huge turnout tomorrow. I know that just for my film. And so that's usually I just want the theater to be full. I want a lot of people there, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, that's the only thing. Like, I just want it to be full.
Yeah, you're like, I just want everybody to watch my.
And like, I've been seeing, I've been sitting with the audience during the screenings, and everybody's laughing at all the right moments. It's like, it's awesome. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
that must feel really satisfying.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah, and then the last couple of questions I wanted to ask you. One, what's next? I mean, are you working on a new project?
I mean, I'm always shooting music videos, so that's like my bread and butter is shooting music videos, which is great. But I think I'm sorry, I'm feeling like I'm graduating to the next level. I mean, I'd love to keep shooting more branded stuff. I've been talking to different brands about doing stuff like that, but I very much want to shoot, a feature. But we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things in the works, so I'm excited. Looking forward.
Yeah, I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then lastly, where can people follow you on social media?
Oh yeah, just my Instagram would probably be the best. Would just be Brandon _ Bernath, Bernath. Yeah.
All right, guys, you better follow him if you want to keep up with his projects. Okay, thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate your
Thank you
time.
so much, Tiffany. Thank you.